Hello friends, welcome to the second installment of the Art of Budgeting. Today we're going to talk about the ingredients that are needed to cook up a storm in your budget. Now remember, even when you're collecting ingredients to cook, it can take up a bit more time to collect those ingredients, and therefore be prepared to spend and invest a bit more time preparing your budget, collecting the information to put the budget together. It's an important investment. So what are those ingredients I'm talking about? So firstly, we're going to need to have budget categories, and these are the categories that tell us where are we going to deploy our income. Very important. And of course, we're also going to need some labels. Labels, as you will see in the next lecture, labels actually help us to stick to our budget, and also when times get tough, we use labels to assist us to chop and change so that we still meet our basic needs. We obviously need to have goals for each of the categories, because remember, the budget is here to assist you to meet your financial goals. It is a tool that assists you, but you must define what those goals are for each of the categories. You'll also need to be aware of what your large and irregular expenses are. The other thing we'll look at is then, how then do we use tools to track our budget and track our spending and track our deployment of the income. And lastly, we'll talk about how do we then regularly review our budget. So let's get on to the issue of the categories, the different categories. Of course, the first thing you must have on your budget is your income. And remember, here we are talking about the net income. We're not talking about the gross income. We're talking about the income that actually hits your income state, your bank statement, and it belongs to you. Okay, not what it still belongs to the tax man or woman. Right, so now I must say that there are people with irregular income, with variable income. We'll discuss that in the last episode. But for now, you look at your income, and that means that when you look at your payslip, it's the income that is at the bottom, the net income. If you're running a business, you are looking at the dividends that get given to you as the owner, or the salary, the net salary that comes to you as an owner. But we are talking about what hits the income statement. So how then do you deploy this income into different categories? What can be our guide in terms of coming up with categories? So I thought about this, and I said, well, maybe let's look at what are the basic things that make us function as human beings. If we can figure those out, we can actually get an idea of the kind of categories, a framework from which we can build our categories and our subcategories. I love the verse that's found in Luke chapter 2, verse 52, where it talks about Jesus growing, and it says that the child Jesus grew in stature, which means the physical. He grew in wisdom, which is the mental. He also grew in favor with God, which is the spiritual, and grew in favor with men, which is the social. And I'm suggesting that our budget categories must make sure that there's no part of our humanity where we have not sent our money, and that's very important. So you got to set up then your goals for each of these categories. You got to set up your goals for your spirituality, and this doesn't only talk about contributing to religious organizations like tithe and offering. That's important, but it also talks about how do you make sure that you are spiritually nourished. How do you spend money on ensuring your spiritual nourishment, so you can buy devotion books and things like that. It also talks about carrying out the objectives of your religion. So for example, if you are a Christian, you also believe, as 1 Timothy chapter 5 verse 8 says, that a person who does not take care of his relatives, of his family, is worse than a heathen. So part of Christianity, part of spirituality is the issue of charity, which must start at home. The so-called black tech, it is still part of spirituality. So it's things like that, okay? It's physical. For example, how do you make sure that the body is protected? How do you make sure that you take care of your health? If you read your Bible, in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 19-20, the Bible teaches us that our body is the temple of the Lord. How do you make sure that the temple remains clean and remains properly erected and properly functioning? So that's very important. So it has to do with health, it has to do with shelter, it has to do with safety, it has to do with hygiene. Now that's the physical part of your life. What about the professional part of your life? Because remember that what helps you to make money is what you do professionally, or you're running a business. So you gotta make sure that you protect that. You gotta make sure that you are always nourishing that and make sure that it is maintained and grown. That's very important. So again, that's quite important, which has to do with, for example, your transport to your work, further education to make sure that you grow in your profession, grow in your business. Put some money into that. It's a basic need. It's part of who you are. Your professional life needs to be financed. Okay, so that's also important. And the other three that are important is the intellectual, which really has to do with making sure that you are stimulating your mind, your hobbies, have some interest. Take your mind out of the normal buzz of the day-to-day life. The social, we are social beings. Spend some money on that, meeting up with friends, getting entertained. That's also part of where our money must go. It's part of who we are. It's part of what makes us function as human beings. And of course, one that's always neglected is the emotional part. We rarely send money to take care of our emotions. And I'm suggesting that we also think about putting money to that, which is now the emotional part of things. And of course, the whole point of budgeting is not just meeting your basic needs today, but it's also making sure that you meet your basic needs in the future. So another category that you must have is then the category of investment. Yes, I may afford my life today, but I want to make sure that even in the future I can afford my life. The Bible teaches us in Proverbs 21 verse 20 that a wise person saves for the future, and then a fool, a simpleton, spends everything that they have in one go. So it's very important again that we also take care of the future through the same money, and the budget is a tool that assists us with that. And we'll talk a bit about that in another session. And another thing that's very important is that we also have a category for protecting our assets, protecting ourselves, and protecting our ability to generate income and take care of our basic needs both today and in the future. The Bible interestingly teaches in Proverbs 27 verse 12 that a wise person foresees danger and takes precaution. Yet a simpleton, a simpleton, goes ahead blindly and suffers the consequences. So there you have it. These are the different categories that I'm suggesting that you think about, you put your goals towards. And when you put those categories together, you then need to take your actual expenses. So you now say, okay, fine, these are my categories. I've set them out and I've put the different line items under each category. How am I spending currently? So you look at your expenses. Now, don't be worried that your expenses currently are exceeding your income. We will deal with that later. We just want to see that are your expenses congruent with the different categories that make up a human being. You'll be surprised that there are certain areas you have not spent money on, yet they are very important in your life. And when you're doing this thing of the expenses, please don't forget your bank charges. Also, put the withdrawals you don't remember. Remember now, you can go to your bank statement and look at your history. There are some people who are crazy like me. They keep slips. So you could look at your slips and maybe just look at the last 3 months and see how have I been spending on a monthly basis, given the 3 months average. And don't also forget to put the withdrawals you don't remember what you did with that money. And remember now, what this does, it reveals that sometimes we spend money and we don't remember. And you gotta face that and realize that, you know what, I haven't been taking my money very seriously. And of course, don't forget the unknown debit orders. And this is an opportunity to actually discover where has my money been going. And again, I warn you, don't be worried that for now, your expenses may be exceeding your income. We will deal with that when we deal with the labeling. It's gonna help us now to deal with that issue. Right. And as I said, you can use your bank statement as your source. You can use your slips as a source. But here we are just collecting the different ingredients and putting together the information so that we can start planning for our